Hello, all my entrepreneurs and business leaders, and welcome to the Michael Esposito Show, where I interview titans of industry in order to inform, educate, and inspire you to be great. My guest today is a veteran, serving 8 years, and was deployed to Iraq multiple times. He's part of an elite team in the U.S. Army, the Airborne Brigade. He's also a firefighter, paramedic, and the owner of the Anthony Catalfamo agency. He is one of my newest partners in my insurance endeavors. Please welcome Anthony Catalfamo.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you.
Did I say your last name right?
Yeah, you did. You said it right. You said it right.
I've been butchering it, to be honest with you, for the last couple weeks, months that we've gotten to know each other.
Okay.
It's been
when you have a name like that, you kind of get used to it.
It's a little bit tough with all the I guess the vowels and all the A's. I guess have been messing me up. So I mentioned elite team in the U.S. Army. You're a veteran, and the first thing that stood out to me when we first met was that you are airborne.
Yes.
And I have to mention, which I've mentioned to you, but my father's also airborne.
Yes.
Or was airborne.
Was airborne, yeah,
right?
just like me.
And he
was too.
Part of the 173rd.
Yep.
And is very proud of that, and I was very proud of that growing up, and today I've learned so much more about it. And so to be meeting somebody like you and to be partnered with someone like you who's part of Airborne is amazing. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your experience, and tell me more about why Airborne is so cool.
Well, yeah, when I was 17, my parents had to sign me up, but I wanted to leave right away and go in the Army. And I was at the Lee O'Brien building in Albany, the federal building.
I'm like smirking right now so hard that Tony had to stop for a second here. So my father, same exact thing. He was 17. My grandmother had to sign for him.
Yeah, my dad looked up.
So there's something wrong with you people.
My dad looked up. He goes, "Are you sure this is what you want?" And I said, "Sign it. I want it out."
Wow.
And then I was at the Lee O'Brien, and they go, "Hey, do you want to go airborne?" Because I'd already picked my job. I knew what I wanted to do, and I was like, yeah, I'll go airborne. They're like, "Yeah, there's extra $150 a month for it too." I was like, "Sweet."
Wow.
So they're like, "Oh, go down and get the airborne test." So I'm thinking I'm getting some fancy test. They go down. There's some 12. He's 12, probably. He's probably 20. Little specialist looks at me and goes, "Hold your nose and blow out." Did your ears pop? Yeah, you're good. Go. That was it.
That was the airborne test.
Yep. So then I went to training at Fort Benning. And one step to the left, nothing changes, even though the whole time they're telling you, "Oh yeah, when you go to AIT, we're gonna let you have passes. We're gonna let you, no more drill sergeants." Same people, same training, same yelling. And then you get done with that, and you go down the street to the airborne school, and you become part of the. Orders change, and you get part of the Geronimos, which is an old, it's the Follow Me. It's an old, very old World War II unit that they didn't disband; they just turned it into a training unit.
Oh, and so
there's tons of airborne units in World War II.
Right.
But the big ones were, 82nd and the 101st, but no one knows of the 173rd, which is really big. They were actually really big in Vietnam too.
Yeah, that's
lots and lots and lots of key battles that the 82nd, the 173rd, and the 101st did.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's what he had meant. He was in Vietnam, my father, and so I guess that's where. I remember there was also a combination of the 173rd and 82nd. Is that right?
Yeah. So when they disbanded the 173rd, the 82nd had 4 brigades instead of 3,
mm-hmm.
and that was Gold Brigade. And Gold Brigade went to Italy. Mm-hmm. It was a rotation, and they stopped. Gold Brigade went, never came back, and they stayed in Milano, Italy, or I forgot the exact base in Italy, and really? I tried really hard to get there because I wanted to go there.
Really nice place in Italy.
Oh yeah, where you jump. When you jump, there's the Alps in the background. Yes, a wonderful place.
How often? I'm curious on this. On how often you'd have to jump in training, because I know you in Iraq obviously it was much different.
Right. Well, there was no jumping.
Oh, there wasn't. Okay.
There was one combat jump, and they did it all the way up in the north where there wasn't really any combat, and most of the guys that showed up were all brass, so they could get their combat jump.
Okay.
It was really funny to see all that.
Okay. But in training, are you jumping
Yes.
every week or are you jumping every day?
So you have to jump once every 3 months minimum to maintain your thing. We jumped a lot though. We would jump at least once a month. Average. If you averaged all the jumps out, there would be some months you jumped back to back multiple times. It depended on what was going on. And if there were big operations, if they had big, like when I first got in, we had what was called Purple Dragon, where the entire 82nd Airborne jumped, all 15,000 of us at once. It was crazy. It was my very first jump in the 82nd. I mean, I just got to my unit, bam, going to Purple Dragon. It was scary. I realized I was with a bunch of nutcases and loved it, but it was scary.
It was scary, yeah.
Oh yeah, they were shaking the plane, screaming they're ready. The pilot came over the thing and told them to stop shaking the plane or he's going to drop us all out the back. And they started swearing at him in sync. It was great.
It reminds me of like being a kid on a much different level here, but being a kid and jumping up and down in an elevator. Right?
Yeah.
Shaking the elevator.
Yeah, we were shaking it. And then, we all pile out. It's not like some of the other departments of defense where they go to the door and take a second. We all just pile out
and just
as fast as
out.
we can.
Okay.
And, there were guys fighting each other on the way down for who stole whose air. I had to run across the canopy because somebody came up underneath me and took my air and my canopy collapsed a little.
What does that mean, take my air and canopy?
So it's kind of hard to explain. Like I'm trying to do it with my hands and I'm on radio here. So your canopy is the big parachute.
Okay.
And if someone comes directly underneath you, all the air that's holding your canopy goes into their canopy.
Oh.
So they took your air.
And then you start free falling a little bit?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And you can get like what's called a cigarette roll where it just turns into a big tube and then you become a lawn dart.
And you're just like stuck.
Or falling.
Oh my goodness.
So you have to get away from them. And there was canopies everywhere.
So
it was a mess.
You kind of have to learn how to
It was a mess. You ran across
I guess.
You run across the canopy and jump off. And
what do you mean run across?
So I landed on his canopy and had to jump off it.
So you're in midair.
Yes.
Okay.
Somebody
so
comes
now
right
I think now we have a visual here. So you're in midair.
Yes.
You have your parachute has been deployed. It's open like a mushroom.
Yes.
Somebody flies underneath you.
Yes.
They steal your air. Like you said, you look like a cigarette now.
Yeah.
And now you are literally walking on their parachute in midair
to jump off.
To jump off.
To get away.
To jump off again.
And get more air.
To get more air. My goodness.
And I was holding on to my reserve the whole time, like hoping to God I didn't have to pull it.
And this is all happening at how many feet in the air?
It was not that high.
Right. I understand. My father said it wasn't that high.
So a real combat jump's like 600 feet. You're not jumping with a reserve.
So you don't have much time.
So we jump training, we do 800 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called 800 feet AGL, above ground level.
So essentially you're jumping out and you're deploying your parachute.
It's instant. So we go 1,000, 2,000. You're supposed to count to 4 and pull your reserve if you don't feel it.
Okay.
If you don't feel it by 2, that opening shock, then you don't have a parachute above you.
You gotta throw your reserve.
Yeah.
And throwing your reserve is literally holding the parachute in your hand and
no, actually they have a metal. There's a metal handle, and there's a spring inside the back of the parachute. So when you pull it, the spring shoots it out in order to make it inflate.
Okay.
I've never seen one of those fail. I've seen chutes fail, but I've never seen
that. Okay. Well, very interesting. I think my father said I don't think he did do a combat jump. I don't think he needed to do one. And he's very
everybody
he's very grateful that he didn't have to do one.
After being deployed several times, I wouldn't want to.
Right.
Unless it was like how they did.
He said it was very dangerous.
So the 173rd did one. They reactivated the 173rd in Iraq and they jumped in up north by Mosul.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing going on at that time up there.
So they just did it.
They did it as a point to bring them down as well. So they were able to put an entire division in, and then bring them down as like a part of their 3-prong attack anyway. So it was done strategically.
That's what I was going to ask. Okay.
But normally, like if you talk about like Normandy,
right?
They jumped out. It was nothing but gunfire coming at them because you can shoot at a person in a parachute. You can shoot at a paratrooper. Can't shoot at a pilot exiting a plane. Difference.
Oh, these rules here of engagement, I guess. So the purpose of it originally, like what you were saying, like in Normandy, is to get troops on the ground
behind the lines, so that you can cut them off
in the safest way without having to go in with a whole tank and unit. Okay, but in these other circumstances like Iraq and Vietnam, it wasn't necessary, I guess, to some extent.
I'm not going to say that. I wasn't the guy in charge.
Right. So we don't know. Okay.
I don't want to be that guy.
All right. So we don't have to go down that.
You're going to get 50 million veterans calling me every single thing in the book. But what I'm saying is, and all the guys that I worked with that went and did the jump, because I didn't do the jump, and I was mad I didn't get to do the jump.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I'm going to tell you, I was mad. Everybody wants that mustard stain on their wings. That's
Sure.
that's like it's like having a Medal of Honor. I mean, in the airborne world, yeah, great, you had the Medal of Honor. Do you have a mustard stain?
Right. Okay. That's what it's called. I do want to ask about some of those things, those achievements, because I think that goes into leadership. But I do want to just say one thing I want to say is we're having this conversation right now, and there's certainly some ignorance in all of it because we're just speaking based off of experiences and stories heard.
Right. Everyone has a different experience, different thing. I wasn't at the command top when this was all hashed out.
Right, and we don't have our history books out here to know how many jumps were done or not done. So I just want to give respect to all of our listeners, veterans, and families of veterans, and anybody who's listening. If they've done one, fantastic. We applaud them, but we're just
not many.
We're just kind of like having a little bit
we're just
of a
having a
conversation
chat.
here.
Most guys, if they're airborne guys and they hear me talking, they're going to understand exactly what I'm saying.
So I do want to get into that a little bit. So we talked about the mustard stain, and I want to learn a little bit more about that. But I think that when we look at a military background, there's a direct correlation to leadership, or there's this idea that, okay, they were in the military, there's definitely some leadership qualities there. And so I want to hear a little bit more about your experience with leadership in the military. And because I know that when I went to visit you at your office in Saratoga, which we're going to speak about your office in a little bit, there was a nice amount of awards or medals.
My I Love Me wall.
Yeah, your I Love Me wall, which you deserve there. So I'd like to hear a little bit about some of those and how you were able to achieve some of these things.
Well, the highest award I have is an ARCOM, an Army Commendation Medal. In all fairness, just the ARCOM alone, you can get that by doing something good at the base, and you have an officer who wants to put you in for an ARCOM. What had happened for that was I put my guys in for Bronze Stars with V's, and I was put in for a higher award, and they downgraded it to an ARCOM. Don't know why. What we did was we were with 2nd Marine Division, and we were in a crappy little place just outside of Haditha. We were in Heat, H-I-T, and we came under fire. It was just a platoon, so it was gray platoon, and it was out of the 325th out of Ohio. Those guys, I worked with them. They were a reserve unit. They were phenomenal guys. Phenomenal. I mean, just
so this is a combat situation.
Yes, yes. So we were there. We were on rooftops, and it was just their platoon was really small anyway. They were more like a scout platoon, and they're there with their Humvees. Their platoon sergeant was a phenomenal guy, and all of a sudden we just start getting hammered. RPGs, mortars, small arms fire, automatic fire from PKMs, sniper fire from Dragunovs. It was just really big stuff coming at us, and we had things going, and they went, and one of their guys grabbed a car and blocked the bridge. It was this tiny little pontoon bridge. We couldn't get Humvees across, we couldn't get tanks across, couldn't get anything across this. They knew it, they used it to their advantage. They weren't really recognizing the fact that we were going to get on a firing line and really give it to them back. What we had done was they were on patrol, so we were just manning the roof, and there was like a very small contingent, maybe 2 Humvees with 4 guys total. So for us to come under this fire, they also had 2 tanks that they had hiding, and we came under the fire, and the tanks they did come out, but they didn't come out as fast as I thought they would, or at least it felt like forever. Mm-hmm. And we were just taking some serious damage, and the buildings were blowing up all around us. And I hopped on the Marines 249. They have different ones than the Army. They have our older version, which has its flaws.
When you keep saying they, we're talking Taliban?
No, the Marines.
Oh, okay.
The Marines. So their guys weren't on the roof. They had left their crew serve weapons there to go do a quick patrol. So they weren't there. We were holding the position with just 4 other Marines. Okay. So there was 7 of us total, and we were taking on anywhere from 20 to I don't know how many insurgents.
But that's what I'm at. So you're taking it on from the Taliban or the Iraq?
No, this would be what they called themselves, the Mujahideen. These guys were just freedom fighters that kept calling themselves. But these guys were Al Qaeda in Iraq.
Al Qaeda, okay.
Yes, these guys were Al Qaeda, and we're taking mortar rounds like there's no tomorrow. This happened for 3 days straight. Even when the guys came back, this just kept going back and forth, back and forth. But
so what's the living situation in this moment here? So 3 days straight, you're
on the roof.
You're sleeping on a roof.
Yeah, you're just on the roof, man and a gun.
And food, you just have like bars and stuff?
Yeah, just MREs that we broke down and put in our pockets. And we'd there were, don't get me wrong, this wasn't like, even in World War II, they had breaks in between the firefights. It wasn't like,
But these breaks aren't like, all right, everybody, we're just gonna all use a restroom here.
Yeah, we'd go use a restroom, which was on the roof. We would, people would throw up. You'd send a runner down to go get ammo. One of the, we'd get.
And the other people are stopped fighting because of this. They're saying, okay.
Well, they're also they're rearming.
So they're using that moment as well. Everybody's kind of like, all right, we're gonna.
Yeah, it's just a. Yeah.
Take a moment together.
So, I had hopped on their crew weapon and just smoked their barrel and then changed out the next barrel. And later that night, we were on the radio with what they call Anvil, which is their Harriers back then, and we're talking to the Marine Harriers, and they're trying to find the gun emplacements and stuff, and they had said that we hit the guy and he fell on top of the mortar, or we hit the mortar and made the tube go up as they were throwing a round in, and it went straight up and straight down on top of him, because he said there was just carnage everywhere. And we were lasing certain sites that we wanted him to look at, and we coordinated all that with their stuff because their radios went down in all the explosions. So we were the only ones that had clear radios. So for organizing all that and coordinating with another unit that doesn't have the same stuff that we have and all this other stuff, and making sure that line of operation didn't fall for those 3 days, they put us in for high awards.
Okay.
And then to be honest with you, I don't know. We got downgraded to our Army Commendation medals with V devices for valor.
But, I mean, like you said, whatever the award is, right, the I Love Me wall, like you call it, but I mean, I think
so, yeah, I had several ARCOMs. I had a whole bunch of Army Achievement medals. I had Good Conduct medals. I had, you have your Global War on Terrorism medal, your Iraqi Campaign medal, several medals.
But I think what we're talking about here is what led to get to that recognition, regardless of the level of whatever politics get played into the level of recognition. It's that you had to communicate with these different people, these different teams, in order to survive.
Yes.
And I think that then translates into what you do in the real world today. Well, that's the real world there, but I understand that civilian world and military world are different, is what I mean to say.
Yeah, we call it the real world.
Right. You have the civilian world, and from what I understand. So, I think that translates into some of the leadership that you have today of communicating with a team, of the different communications that you have with your different team members, and how you're able to do that. And now you're a firefighter, so I'm sure that also.
Yeah, it does play a part. I mean, yeah, we do communicate. But again, as a firefighter, I get to communicate almost like I'm in the military, because they're split-second decisions. If someone's doing something wrong, you can just correct it, and you don't have to worry about their feelings.
Mm-hmm. It's
very different.
There's a book that I'm reading right now called Culture Code, and it speaks a lot about that, about being able to have these short little bursts, and what they're called are notifications, right? Do you guys call them that in the...
No, we just corrected. You made corrections.
Corrections. They're called. They call them notifications in the book, and what they talk about is these notifications are what help you survive in these moments. So the example that he gives in the book is there was a flight that took place, and I don't remember the numbers of the flight and all that stuff and all the specifics, but true story. Flight takes place, and one of their engines go out, and they pretty much lose control of the plane. And the two pilots are up front, and they send back to say to everybody, like, hey, look, here's what's going on. Just so happens that somebody in the seats is a flight trainer. So now he goes and says, I'll lend my help wherever it's needed, right? So he goes up front. So now you got the three pilots up front working the commands. And I'm making pretty much a full chapter into a couple minutes here. And he goes up. And what they end up doing, and obviously it's all recorded, is that you just hear... give more power to the right.
Yes.
Up to the left.
Right.
Can you hold it?
Yeah.
Go down.
Right.
Up. Down.
Stop.
Yeah. Right. And it's all notifications, and they save the plane.
Right.
And what they did in their research was they found that they crashed into like a field of some sort, but they say everybody survived.
Right. Well, then that's success.
Right. And in their research, every simulation that they did afterwards crashed.
Mm-hmm.
And any other times, I think it's something that's like an inversion of the plane, something happens, and it's always ends in death. And what they found was that because of these short bursts of communication, these notifications, they were able to save the plane. And what happens in that moment is that ego is removed.
Yes.
Is there's no commander in place. The pilot, the main pilot, gave up his rank in that moment and just said, "Can you help me?" He actually says that on "Can you help me?"
Right.
You know, and I think that you learn that, right? And what you're talking about, your survival moments.
You learn that. I mean, yes, there's, we always had the thing, the officers are the makers of the standard. When we were NCOs, we're the keeper of the standard. We make the officer look good. I mean, every time when I was just a private, I remember hearing an old, salty sergeant first class to a lieutenant who was 22, 24 coming out of college. He's 36, 45. Listen, kid, do what I tell you to do, and you'll get to the next two ranks very fast. Not disrespectful, just saying, I respect that you're a lieutenant, but I'm going to show you the ropes. I mean, a good lieutenant will listen and see and observe. Any good leader, though, won't come in and just make changes right away. They'll observe for a period of time.
Right.
They'll see, they'll evaluate. I had good leaders, I had bad leaders. Even my bad leaders today, though, are phenomenal compared to some of the leadership I've had to deal with in my time of being out.
And when you think about that, I mean, so this podcast is not a military podcast, although we're talking a lot about the military.
I'm sorry.
No. This is wonderful.
Such a huge part of my life.
It is, and we're going to stay there too, because I think in the book that I'm talking about, they bring up the military multiple times. Actually,
right.
They talk about the war. I forget what year it is, but it's World War I, I believe it was, where the Christmas that everybody stopped fighting and went out. Talk about all the communication that happened between the two different sides
to have that happen.
For that to happen, and that part of that was because there was so much communication happening because they were just stuck in the same place for so long, that after that happened, from both sides, they started changing people out and doing a rotation because there was just too much communication, and they needed them to fight, which is sad and unfortunate. But I mean, the reason why I'm saying this is the military gets brought up so much when you're talking about company culture, which is, when we talk about this podcast, it's for our entrepreneurs and business leaders out there. And we think about company culture, and you think about, well, what breeds good culture? Is it a leader going up front saying, hey, you need to do this, this, and that? Or is it what you just said, empowering your officers, empowering your sales team, empowering your assistants, in our world, CSRs, right? Empowering your team and giving them the power to make a decision on their own. Right,
and that's perfect. I mean, I can't think of his first name, the Bronson guy who's in charge of Virgin.
Oh yeah, Richard
Bronson. I mean, his famous line is I don't know if it's again, I'm going to be wrong. I may be wrong, but it's playing off of the customer's always right. It's not customer's not always right. Your employee is always right.
Right.
Take care of your employees, and I did that to an extent because I also did that in the Army. I got taught, real young, that there's a couple rules you follow and no one can ever touch you, no matter how big of a mouth you have. And I have a big mouth.
Yeah.
Always know your job. Always complete your mission. Always take care of your troops. You do those three things, no one can touch you. Nobody. And no one could touch me. And I did a lot of push-ups.
Yeah.
I'm from New York.
Right.
We're all from, it doesn't matter where you're from if you're from this state, you got a big mouth. So, and I used it.
Yeah, and they train you in the South on purpose. But with what you're saying too about the employees, so it's like, and we're going to talk about our agencies here because a lot of the reason for this podcast too is to get to know each other, help our client base get to know us and what we're doing in terms of the partnership in our agencies. But at my agency at Den10, I always talk about making sure that we have the best employee experience. And part of that is a spin-off of what you hear with Amazon of the ultimate customer experience. And why I say it's a spin-off of that is, to me, in our industry, in the industry of insurance, it's a service industry. And to me, the only way that our customer can get the ultimate experience, our client can get the ultimate experience, is if our employees are happy.
Yes.
If our employees are happy and are content and exceeding goals and are supported and feel like they can make a decision,
Yep.
and they have the ultimate experience as an employee at my agency.
They're going to create an ultimate customer experience.
Exactly.
I mean, they do that. I mean, I don't know. I've been to Disney a few times. I don't know the ins and outs.
Right.
But they have people making decisions right then and there. There's not someone saying, let me get a manager, and then that manager saying, let me get another manager, and another manager, and all this layers. They're like, no, we'll fix this right now. Because they want to do it. They're excited to help. And most insurance agents, if they're not being, even owners, if they're not bogged down, they're more, that's what they want to do. That's what I wanted to do. I was watching all these fires happen as a fireman. I'm watching all these people not have renter's insurance, all these people not have homeowner's insurance, or they had the wrong homeowner's insurance. And I was like, well, this can't be that hard.
Right.
Yeah,
that's what I thought when I got into
and
it.
then but then you start seeing all the laws, then you start seeing all the intricacies and the insurance ease of how it's written.
Yeah.
And you're like,
so I guess let's kind of let everybody know what's going on here, in that one, I'm honored to have you on because you're a business owner and entrepreneur, and you started something which is phenomenal, an insurance agency in the Saratoga area. And so it's always nice to have another business owner on, another entrepreneur on, and learn from your stories and your challenges and how you overcome them. But on the other side of this, the other reason why you're here is because we've entered a partnership.
yes.
So what I want to share with our listeners here is the Den 10 Insurance Agency, which is my insurance agency, has purchased the Anthony Catalfamo agency, which I think I just butchered your name this time.
You got it right.
No, I got it right?
Yep.
All right, here we go. And with that agreement, Anthony, better known as Tony, but by his friends here, will be part of the agency for the next couple months in order to help in this transition. And so what we wanted to share with our audience here and with our clients here is a little bit about each other, a little bit about who Anthony is, who he is in his community, and also about Den 10 and who we are and who I am, Michael Esposito, and what I do in my community and how I'm going to be able to serve our Saratoga community and our clients over at Tony's agency. So that's a little bit about, wanted to make sure that there was clarity in this conversation that we're having as we continue here.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, I love that idea of getting into the insurance industry to help others. Because you and I, we clicked right away when we spoke on the phone.
Oh yeah, it was
felt
instant.
That, right? Like I had called a couple, I had gotten notifications on some agencies for sale, and made some calls and had some conversations, and it didn't click as quickly as it did for us. I mean, I'm sure the Airborne thing helped. Thank you, Papa, Airborne. But outside of that, I think it was also this idea of getting into insurance because it's an industry that we can help others. Right. So let's get back to that, to the whole firefighter thing. So you were a firefighter first.
Yes.
And so you were seeing a lot of this. And
yes.
This is really important because I think our clients, prospects, everybody out there, they don't understand the importance of coverage and proper coverage.
Yes.
And so I'm very interested in this and what you were seeing as a firefighter. So you were going into these burning buildings and...
Yeah, so these apartments would be burned, or they 2 families, that's the standard kind of area, and we have a 2 or 3 family, and then the people would be calling the Red Cross for. They had nowhere to go. So they'd be going, but the Red Cross puts you in the closest hotel.
Right.
So if you're in a neighborhood that's in a depressed area, you might be going to the hotel where all the prostitution and crack and drug dealing is going on, and that's not a good place for your kids to be.
And the other thing too, and we're not gonna talk about coverage this whole time.
No,
but,
I'm sorry.
But just stay on this
for
one last second here with what you just said too, because I want to just dispel a myth here about the 800 numbers of the world, which we know who they are, right? The lizards. In that you really aren't saving money. Because there's so many times that we come up against that kind of company, and what we find is that they have minimum coverages, and then when we put them with one of our most competitive companies with the proper coverages, or just a little bit lower than what we would really like to see them in, we're apples to apples in terms of premium.
Yeah.
We're the same premium.
But the problem,
but you're getting better coverage.
It's still apples to oranges. I mean, there is no such thing as apples to apples anymore, because what Liberty Mutual offers versus what New York Central Mutual offers, especially within their written policies, are all different.
Right.
I mean, yes, you can go straight off of the declarations pages, which is a list of all your coverages. If you go straight off of that, yes, but if you dive into the policies
Right.
a little bit more, which is what we do as insurance agents, we
Nice.
dive into the policy so you don't have to. You have a question about it. If this happens to my house, you call us. It's not a claim. You call the 1-800 number. They make it a claim whether or not you actually file it.
Right.
So that's the whole point of an independent insurance agent is we work for the customer, not the carrier.
Well, that's the broker agent hat, right? That
Yeah.
we wear. So we wear the agent hat because we represent the carrier. We wear the broker hat because we represent the client, and the client comes first.
Right.
That's the thing with the independent model, which is wonderful. And so, as we get into now our agencies here, is that we're both independent agencies.
Yes.
And so we have access to multiple carriers, which is fantastic, because that's where that broker piece comes in that we can meet with a client and figure out what their needs are, and then we could then pick
Right.
which carrier is right for them. Now, most of the time we'll quote between several carriers, but from there we can put together an idea of 2 to 3 carriers to then go back to the client with, if they want that, and say, here's the options. And like you said, it's not just based off of coverages on the declaration page. It can go further than that of,
Oh, yeah.
what else do you want? What else do you need?
I was going to tell you. I mean, that's one of the things why we also clicked, though, was you have the same philosophy I have is I don't want to just give someone a cookie cutter policy and move on to the next one. That's like a car salesman. All they want to do is get you in and get you out. They don't care. I want clients that are going to stay with me for 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
I don't care if I lose out on, several grand over here.
Right.
Those people, they come and go every 6 months anyway. I want the people that care about their stuff, that then I can care about them. I mean, I have guys I have one client that now is your client. They have a more expensive homeowners policy. I did not put them with the cheaper policy. I explained it to them. I go, this one's cheaper. I go, but you have all these trees here. This policy covers all of these trees to this level. If one falls, you're only getting this from this policy, but this policy here is giving you all this extra coverage. Which would you like?
Right.
You get to pick. It's still your choice. I'm presenting you this 2 options, the cheapest one and the one I think is good for you.
Right.
And it's not because I wanted more commission. It's because I want to make sure
Right.
you're covered. I mean, I really did. I work with his son.
Right.
It's
Right.
So-
And the thing there is about what you're speaking there is that philosophy of making sure that they have all of the right coverages is kind of so important. I kind of got distracted here. My alarm on my phone went off here. But
that's what that was?
that was my alarm.
I was getting ready to jab at you. Like, put your phone on silent.
Yeah, but my phone's on silent, but my alarm went off.
Oh, did it go over?
But no, we're good.
Okay.
It's just making sure that they have the right coverages in place because, like you said, it's this relationship that we're trying to form. It's not about premiums and commissions because there's so many times that huge premiums get put in front of us, and I'll share a story about that in a second. But if the relationship isn't there, what's the sense? Because here's the thing: we're putting in. So the thing that I think our clients, our prospects don't see
all the extra hours behind the scenes.
we're putting in
Several
hours. And so it has to be a relationship because you and I and my staff and your staff that's coming on board here, we actually care.
Yeah.
So when you call us, we're going to spend time and speak with you.
Oh, yeah.
And that time, if you think about it, cuts into commissions, right?
Yeah.
But we don't care about that because we have a relationship with you. If we don't have a relationship, that's when that matters.
Right.
And so to that point, a quick little story here for you, and I think you'll appreciate this. Jim, who's one of my salespeople, and I had an opportunity at a really large account, several $100,000 account down in Jersey. And so just for everybody's information, so we're licensed in all the surrounding states. Every state that touches New York, we're licensed in now. So we don't need to go through all of those. So this account is about 2 hours away, but we're talking several $100,000 in premium. So this is worth it, right, to make the 2 hour drive. Now this was a warm referral. An engineer who Jim and I are very close with. Actually, this is very ironic. He was the past president at Toastmasters, who I became president next in. So me and this person are very close. Turns out that it's Jim's old client.
Oh,
so Jim's
perfect.
book came over to the agency actually. So he became my client.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like funny. And so he's an engineer, and in his work he requires certain types of certificates of insurance. And so he required it from this company, and they didn't have it. So he referred them to us. So we have this opportunity at several $100,000 account. And Jim calls me up and he says, they're willing to meet with us. Would you come? And I go, of course I'm going to come. This is a big account, right? So of course I'm going to do it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
call them up and speak with the owner. And I could tell that the owner was a little short with me. And, yeah, come on down. And I said, well, here's a couple things that I need to make sure that we have in place when I come and meet with you. I need to have your revenue. I need to have your deck pages.
Yeah.
I need to see everything and all your policy. Yeah, we'll have all that. So kind of like a little short with me, but I was being,
Right.
willing to accept that of like, you know what, when we get there, we'll have all that.
Those
in
guys
place.
are busy too. They're usually short with everybody.
Fair enough, right? So get off the line with him. And now here's where we're talking about relationship, right? We're not just going to show up to this meeting. So now Jim and I are on the phone with multiple carriers to try to make sure that we have some placement.
Pre-approvals and
Exactly.
yeah.
So we're speaking with different companies now. We pretty much spent about 4 hours together prepping for an initial meeting.
Right, where you had no info anyway.
No info
You're
anyway.
already 4 hours in.
4 hours in.
Right.
We're meeting with different consultants on this, different insurance consultants on this. And in one of our meetings, the consultant that we spoke with, insurance consultant that we spoke with, and these are from different carriers and different people that come in, underwriters and all these different experts in the field, says, there's something a little bit weird about this, that they don't have this certain coverage in place and that they're asking you to get this coverage and they pretty much needed it yesterday, right, in terms of time frames. What I would recommend to you guys is before you make this 2-hour drive or 4-hour drive, because back and forth, right, is to give them a call back today. This was Thursday. You're going to go down Tuesday. To give them a call back today and let them know that you have somebody that you might be able to write them with, which is us. And we require all that information today in order to expedite everything for them by next week, since they needed this yesterday anyway. So they might appreciate the fact that you might be able to get this done a lot sooner, but I would recommend that you do this today. And the reason why he said that was they might just be kicking your tires because their agent, they're just waiting on something for. So he was kind of like calling them out a little bit, but also saying, hey, look, if you really need this, let's get this done, right?
Right.
So I give them a call back, and they were short again. And so I kind of had to pull the CEO card out, which was kind of cool to have. So for our entrepreneurs and business leaders out there, I don't think titles matter too much. Holy moly here, my alarm, I finally got it off here. I don't think titles matter too much in our industries. Sometimes they matter to some extent, but in this situation it actually mattered. I think it held some validity here in that I've always looked at myself as the CEO of this company because of a mindset.
Right.
And because of the way that we organize the company and orchestrate different things.
Yeah, and you're saying, not to cut you off, I'm sorry.
No,
but,
please.
I went to a thing with the really big financial group out of New York City. I can't think of their name.
Okay.
Now. I'm so
Anyway,
sorry.
doesn't matter.
They're huge. They're
LPL?
no.
So you went to a conference with a big financial group?
Big, huge. And the guy came out and he had like a $10,000 suit on. You could tell.
Okay.
And he goes, stop calling yourselves presidents. Companies have 10, 15, 20, 30 presidents. You are a CEO. Act like it. You are the CEO of your company. So whether you own a hot dog stand or a multi-million-dollar corporation, you're the CEO.
Yeah.
And the CEO, when you're a CEO, when you tell them, well, I'm the CEO, it's a lot different than I'm the agency owner.
Right.
I'm the CEO.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, doesn't matter. You could be, again.
And it's a mindset shift,
Yes,
too.
it really is,
It
because
changes.
Presidents are always worried about budgets and all this other stuff. CEOs are worried about, what can I do next? What is the next thing?
Vision, yeah.
Yes.
It's holding that vision, but it's also because, to me, you're orchestrating so many things. Like, I mean, at Den 10, we have a financial team, we have a marketing team, we have a sales team, we have all these different teams, and they literally are different teams of people.
Right.
And I have to orchestrate all of them.
Right, so you can't focus on one thing. You need to be looking forward, not down.
Always, right.
Presidents look down, CEOs look up.
So, well, I appreciate that.
But that's what he said, and that's what I learned.
So I think that's really important for our listeners out there too, is that, it's a mindset thing, and it's really important because, like you said, right, so as the agency principal or agency owner, sometimes that becomes a big weight on you, because if you're the agency owner, a lot of times if you speak to somebody who says they're an agency owner, they're probably out there selling too. They're out there selling, they're out there networking, and then they're trying to run an office, and they're trying to also do certificates, and they're trying to and they are you've done it,
It was not
and
fun.
they are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And how can you grow if
Your head's
that's
down.
Exactly.
Your head's down.
So using that in mind, so
Right.
now,
So you called this guy.
So actually, it was a woman.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. It's I think it's a father and daughter
Okay.
business, from my understanding. So I call her up, and I could tell she's blowing me off again. And I said, let me just stop for a second here. I said, I understand you're busy. I know you're a business owner, you're busy. I said, I'm the CEO of Den 10, and I'm busy too. And I have a lot on my plate, and before I make a 4-hour commitment to you, I need to make sure that we have an open dialogue.
Right.
And immediately, she hit the brakes.
Mm-hmm.
And she took a step back. I could tell she slowed her pace down in her way of speaking to me and started listening.
Yep.
And I said, I'm a warm referral. This wasn't a cold call. I'm a warm referral, and I'm meeting with you, and I've been on the phone all morning with different carriers to try to find something for you, and I want to make sure this is a right fit. So we had a conversation. Now remember, the whole reason why we're bringing this up is because we're talking about relationship. So now we have several $100,000s worth of premium, and for our listeners here, when we're talking about several $100,000s worth of premium, we're talking tens of $1,000s worth of commission, worth of revenue for the agency.
Instant.
That Jim's going to have, that I'm going to have, that the agency's going to have. We're talking about instant revenue. This is great.
A whale.
This is a whale. And a whale like this, to your point, leads you to other whales.
Yes, exactly.
Because you write their business, then they're referring the other businesses around them.
100%.
I'm trying to be vague of what kind of business they're in. So anyway, in that conversation, she does come out and say some things to me, to which I then replied, so it sounds like you have a relationship with your agent. And she said, I do. I said, great. I said, how long have you been with your agent? She said, with my dad, with me, it's been a long time. I said, so you're loyal to him? She goes, yeah. I said, and so right now what the problem is that he just can't get you what you need in time. She said, yeah. I said, fair enough. I said, here's the deal. We work off of relationships, and I want to build a relationship with you. I'm not here to piecemeal an agreement for you. If I could fill a hole for you, I'd be more than happy to do that. But I'm filling that because I want to form a relationship with you to then go down that path, right? And if you need me to do that, I'm more than happy to, but we have to have the open dialogue, and you have to know that that's what I'm looking for. And so that being said, is this a good fit? She said no, and I said, fair enough. I said, if there is something that you'd like to do going forward, I would need 6 to 7 months before renewal to start working on it with you. And I'd want you to know that this would be a relationship, that we wouldn't be looking to just have one piece of your business.
Right.
We'd be looking to have all of it.
Right.
And it's not because we're greedy.
No.
It's because it's a relationship, which is so important. That we were willing, and Jim, when I told him this, he was like, oh, good job. I'm glad you said that, Michael. We were willing, we did, right? To walk away from several $1,000s worth of commission because the relationship wasn't there.
Right.
Because that's what matters most.
Right. It really does. You gotta have that relationship. I mean, and as a CEO standpoint too, why do you want this contract for a year?
That's the thing. That's the other thing, right?
You might as well, you walking away from it is the same thing as you taking it for just a year. It doesn't matter. That's not going to actually affect your bottom line. Being with them will affect your bottom. Having good relationships, having good rapport, a good responsibility, like the stuff that you guys do in the community, all the stuff you do, same stuff, all the stuff we did with the Veteran Housing Coalition. Mm-hmm. We didn't do that, I didn't do it for a bottom line.
Right.
I did it because I loved it and I wanted to help people. Again, I want to do more helping. Like you get really excited when you guys talk about all the stuff you do around here and your family's foundation.
Yeah.
I can see the smile on your face. But I'm just saying, we do those things because we like it. But you know what? It does affect the bottom line.
Right.
Why can't you help somebody? Helping somebody makes you feel 10 times better than getting money.
Right.
But if you can also get money from it, why not? That doesn't make you a bad person.
Right.
Well,
that's the greatest part about insurance is that you are helping people. I think sales in general gets a bad rap, and then insurance gets a bad rap.
Sales gets a bad rap. Your phone rings. How much does your phone ring?
Right.
Your car warranty is expired.
Right.
I'll be dead, and they'll still be.
Right. But I think that what we forget is that that's a very small portion of the salespeople or insurance people that are out there.
Yeah, they're the minority.
There are so many out there that are there to help and to give.
Right, and they genuinely love insurance.
And that's what we've learned about working together.
Yeah.
Right? Is our organizations are there to help first.
Yeah.
And we provide a service in that of insurance.
Right.
And it's to educate you so that we can sell you the right insurance that's right for you.
And we're employing people. We're employing all different walks of life. And we're all different financial backgrounds, and we're helping people. I had a couple employees that they were on the system. They came, worked with us. We got them, and I'm not going political. I'm just saying we got them off the system though. They're off the system. One of them owns a house. The other one has a really nice apartment because they don't want to own a house. And it's like, okay, but you're no longer doing this path. You're doing a different path.
Uplifts our communities.
And I didn't do it because I wanted to do it. I did it because they showed up, they kicked butt. Can I say ass?
You can say
they kicked ass on the freaking...
Everybody's an adult on the other line here. And for our kids out there, just wait till you're an adult to
exactly.
say it.
I'm just saying, they kicked ass at the interview. You know, I didn't... And again, I come from the Army, so everyone from all these walks of life... I mean, when in 82nd, I was part of the All-Americans. We were called the All-Americans because they came from every background, financially, color, race, creeds, everything.
I think that that's so important, too, to recognize is that you and I both look at employing as employing a good person.
Right.
And everybody's welcomed to the
right.
table.
I don't care what you did before. I don't care what your resume says. I just want to. I want you to show me that you can sell yourself to me. You can sell insurance.
That's right. Yeah, and I think also it's to me it's when you're saying sell yourself to me, it's really if you can build rapport with me.
Right.
If you can build a relationship with me, then you could build a relationship with anybody.
Exactly.
And that's really the important part is it's about relationships and we talk about that too. And when we talk about sales is when we look at somebody that we have a relationship with. How are we going to follow up with them?
Right.
And we talk about that. Like, are we going to send them another email? Are we going to send them another phone call, another text message?
Right.
And a lot of times I say, well, we're probably going to see them in another week or so. So why don't we hold off on that? And let's do it in person. Let's just say hello to them in person. Right. And I think the other important piece of that is it's not about let's follow up with them in person. It's just saying hi to them in person. They know that you have a quote on the table for them. They've seen the email.
Right.
They've seen the text message. So to me, when I see somebody in person that I've quoted and they haven't responded or anything, I just say hi to them.
Right.
And most of the time, they respond to me, hey, I owe you a phone call. No problem. Get back to me when you do.
Just wanted to say hi.
Because it's about the relationship, which is so important. You were talking about giving back and, in your experience, and that was another reason why we clicked so well, was about both of our organizations being built around giving back. And I know that you do a lot of different things. So you've teamed up with, as you mentioned, the Veterans Coalition.
Veteran Housing Coalition, yeah.
And then the Special Olympics.
Yep, and we also teamed up with the Schenectady Firefighters Cancer Foundation.
Yeah, so I'm interested in all of it. I want to, tell us a little bit about the Veterans Coalition's Go in order here.
So the Veteran Housing Coalitions, they're based out of Ballston Spa. They house veterans in the Saratoga area.
Okay.
They do a wonderful job. I know a lot of their housing is actually by my house.
Okay.
They're wonderful. So, and the woman who runs a lot of their outreach, she has 2 sons that are in the Marines.
So tell me about the housing piece to it and the necessity for it.
So there's a lot of homeless veterans, not just from the Vietnam era still, but I mean, you have Gulf War veterans, some have Gulf War syndrome that, just doesn't like to get talked about. You have...
Is Gulf War syndrome like PTSD? Is that pretty what it is? Or
no, there's some chemical involved stuff in it. I'm not 100%.
Okay.
I'm not a...
Yeah,
I don't want to speak out of turn on it, but
yeah.
As far as the PTSD, yes, there's a lot of guys with PTSD. There's a lot of guys that found drugs to try to...
Right, overcompensate,
do something. I mean, you go from being this alpha male, female, and kicking doors in and doing all this stuff and having a purpose to coming home and having no skills.
Right.
All those skills they say you have, those don't translate.
Right.
Me teaching you how to do a hasty ambush around the corner isn't gonna work in the insurance world.
Right.
And these guys have lost and girls, I'm just gonna say guys, like every other language, you just do it to the masculine, so I can just keep moving. But these guys have no purpose.
Right.
They lose their families. Yeah. They lose. I mean, some of them lost their families by deploying. I know I was actually engaged to a totally different person when I was in the Army.
Wow.
And I got a Dear John letter because I was gone too long, and I didn't want you couldn't wait till I was home.
Right.
I mean, now my mind's focused on you instead of looking for an IED.
Right.
But they've lost all that. Some of them are just gone for a while. But you know what? And this works for anybody in poverty. You give them a home. You give them a purpose, they're going to make it. They're going to come out of it.
I love the purpose piece there. Again, when we think about everybody who's listening right now, is that they're trying to build a business right now. They're thinking of a business or they're working in a business right now. I talk about finding your why. Simon Sinek talks about finding your why, but that's essentially your purpose.
Yeah.
That's how important it is that when you lose that, you can lose everything.
Right. I mean, I had a really hard time when I got home. I mean, I was drinking a lot, going out a lot. Again, I was also spending the money that I'd earned because I was single, had no bills, and spent 3 years overseas not paying taxes.
Yeah.
I had money to spend. I went to Europe. Everything I did was first class. I didn't care. I wish I'd invested that money now that I
Right.
think about it. But when I looked at that money, I didn't want it. I didn't want it.
Right.
I didn't like it. And like, you know, I loved what I did, but when I got home, I just felt I had no purpose.
Mm.
And it was really hard to find my purpose.
Mm.
You know, I didn't go down the road some of the other people did, but, you know, everyone, you know.
Is that when you became a firefighter then? Like when?
Well, yeah, I started going to college because I was like, you know what, I made some promises to some people that aren't here that I would go to college because that was what they wanted to do. And I was like, you know, it wasn't what I wanted to do, really. I wanted to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to college. You know, I started out just I was like, well, you know, being a paramedic would be cool. I'm already a national paramedic, but in New York, you got to be a New York paramedic. So I went to school to be a paramedic, and they had a degree program for it. So I did the degree program for it, and I found some classes. I even found a couple professors. It's funny, you know, I'm a middle of the road kind of guy, but you know, the way political spectrums are, I guess I'm awful all over the place. But usually, you know, history teachers are usually really, really, really liberal. And some of my best friends are history teachers, and we are completely opposite. But we have a great time talking. But I met some great people. You know, there was a retired colonel who taught sociology. So I took a sociology class because I was like, oh, I earned all this GI Bill, so I wasn't paying. I have no debt because I earned my money for college. And you know, I did that, and then you know, I was like, well, I'm a paramedic. You know, where I live, there's not many jobs for a paramedic that pay well. I mean, you know, you hear people talking about $15 an hour. I'm like, there's paramedics that are getting $15 an hour, and they're saving your lives, and they're pacing your heart.
Right.
They're stopping your heart chemically.
Right.
And I'm like, well, they need to be paid like $45 an hour.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, you know what? The fire department pays, you know, the starting pay is really, really, really low, like low, you know, and you don't get paid a lot, but you get, you know,
And you're doing good work.
yeah, you're doing good work, and I have a house. My kids are safe and they're fed and well clothed.
And I guess you started finding your purpose in all of that.
Yeah, and then you know, you see something else, you see a need, and you're like, I could fill that need.
Right.
You know, but you got to have that mindset, and if you know, it took me a while to get that mindset back. You know.
So in all of that, I mean, you found your purpose, and so part of what you do with the coalition is you help these veterans, one, get a home,
right,
and hopefully find their purpose.
Right, and I mean,
that.
I'm just not throwing money at it. I'm doing events for them.
Yeah.
We'll come help if they're building a house. We'll come help build the house. You know, I'll put my body where my mouth is.
Right.
But they need money,
Yeah.
and the beauty about them is their overhead costs are nothing.
Mm.
So most of the people that work there draw very little. They get expenses. That's it. So they don't. It's not like certain organizations, and I don't want to name them. But where, you know, 99.9% of the money goes to
Right
them.
to them. Yeah.
And then 0.1% goes to the actual cause.
Which is so cool. And I mean, of course, you know, we're going to be supporting a lot of that. I mean, at Den 10, that's my whole mission. We were just talking about this the other night at the live event, which, stay tuned, listeners. You'll be hearing that live event in a little bit. We were just talking about how Den 10 is rooted in giving back. I mean, we're, you know, when you were mentioning that about the foundation, you know, for me, when I built Den 10, it was because my parents had created an organization called Forgotten Children of Haiti, which is a non-for-profit that gives back to Haiti. And at the time, when they founded it in '93, was supporting my mother's old school and an orphanage and all this other stuff. And then that was destroyed in an earthquake, and now they work with the St. Luke Foundation. And FCH is still around, and we still support it. But at the time, then when I was building Den 10, I was fundraising for FCH and trying to build a company, and I was like, how do I do this all together? Right. So I was like, well, let me just bring it all together. So I always say we're rooted in giving back, because like that's just part of,
right.
That's how I was able to build Den 10, was knowing that I'm also going to still be able to do FCH and what I'm doing there. So that's the foundation, and then giving back locally to things like this, and just being a veteran-owned run organization, I mean, is so important to me and my history with my father and everything. So that's really cool. I'm also interested in the Special Olympics and you being a part of that as well. Is that because you're not good at basketball?
Yes. I'm 5'6".
That's why I brought that up. Yeah. But
no. With that, we don't. I'm not gonna lie to you. That's just we raise money. We throw money.
Okay.
To it. I can't.
An important cause that you care about.
Yeah. So
from the heart. Yeah.
Right.
Fair enough.
You know, when we get referrals, we do a donation in that person's name, and they get to pick from one of those three.
Oh, okay. So that's how it works.
That's how we started it out. And I was looking
cool.
for organizations, and I was like, you know what, Special Olympics is great.
Yeah.
Especially New York Special Olympics, I love it.
Yeah,
you know,
I think it's really great.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends that volunteer as paramedics there. I don't have the time.
Right.
I have other stuff I volunteer for.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah, we could only spread ourselves so thin.
Exactly.
I mean, and you know what? That's like you just said about the veteran organization. I mean, I look at when giving back, and I think anybody who's thinking about giving back this is my philosophy on giving back. It's what you just said. We can only give back so much, right?
Right.
And we can only give to so many organizations. There's so many out there.
right, and there's so much need for everything.
So much need.
But if
and
you
our
find
time,
one that you like,
it's not just like I think it's
I
that,
mean, if you find
it's
that
speaks
gives
to
you purpose.
Right, exactly. That speaks to you. Like for me, Haiti, because I'm Haitian,
Yes.
veterans, my father's a veteran.
Right.
So these things, these organizations are local organizations. Like we just worked with Family of New Paltz,
Yep.
local ones that support the community that you live in. I think that's my approach
Right.
to giving back is
Right.
what speaks to me and the need that's around me, because you can't give to everything. You
no, and
can't.
I mean, like
you wish you could.
Like in Schenectady, we also have a local one called Things of My Very Own, and we had trouble getting stuff for them during COVID, so that became a fourth one, but I've pulled back
Yeah.
because we can't. But that's a wonderful organization. That's a place that when you leave a abusive home, even if you're just a kiddo by yourself, leave an abusive home, well, they have clothes, toys, and things as they put you in the
to help
shelter.
them, yeah.
Things of your very own, because when you leave with nothing but what's
Right.
on your back.
Yeah, you're just trying to get out.
So,
yeah.
These mothers, fathers, or just sometimes kids,
Mhm.
there's stuff for
For
them,
them,
so they
yeah.
have stuff for. So, I mean, but there's other stuff.
Yeah.
It's just you can't have such an open. You got to laser focus on
You got
stuff.
it. Yeah, because I mean, yeah. And the nice thing is that then there's other people who give to these organizations.
Exactly.
It's really nice.
And we piggyback, on stuff. You'll see the veterans
so with
working
us,
with them, and
with us, what we did, and we told you about was the veteran suit drive that we did.
Yes.
Suits for veterans.
Which I got a
Save a suit.
Save a suit, or suits
Save a
for
suit.
soldiers. Oh, save a suit. Okay, I've got a suit in my car for you.
Oh,
by the
awesome!
way.
All right. Well, that's really nice. And then that was actually referred to me by another agency owner, Patriotic Insurance, Rob Bowen.
I know Rob very well.
Yeah, he brought them in.
Yeah, he's a good dude. He was a pilot.
in the military.
Yeah,
Yes.
he was a Marine pilot.
He was on the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, was he?
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
good,
he was one
good.
of-
Yeah,
one of,
good. I like that guy.
He was part of the
such a
first
great
crew
guy.
of people that came on.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and so he hooked us up with Save a Suit. And I mean, it's like I said, you just try to find organizations that speak to your heart, and give back as much as you can. For me, with Den 10, what I also wanted to do is I was tired of asking people for donations,
Mhm.
and so I wanted to be able to give back just through my organization. And
Right.
that's why it's so important for me that Den 10 is successful, because that's how I can give back. Is if we're
Right.
successful, then we can give back. So
Right.
going back to what you're just saying about being laser focused, we have to be laser focused on our business to make sure it's successful, so that we can continue to help our communities
Right.
and our global communities. It's
Right.
really important to
And
us.
but that's a beautiful circle, because you're helping people with their insurance. You're helping them for, God forbid, that day happens. You're
Yeah.
making money by doing that, but yet but then you're able to funnel that a good majority of that money into the organizations that you love.
Right.
That's that's the beauty of it all.
And-
That's the way I was raised. That's the way you were raised. That's the way a lot of us were raised.
So
And we get focused on this part instead of the other part. And I'm not going to lie to you, it's a big circle. The more you help, the more you will help you.